Hello, my favorite IM2T class. Sorry that I cannot be with you there today. Just some personal things happened. So you're watching this video. In this video, we're going to go through invitation 1. And then the notes. And then after that, your teacher will hand you the cool down towards the end of class. I would also like to encourage you to go through activity 1 from last unit on day 7. It's factoring with an A value that's not 1. Please use this time to help each other out. Use the answer key, use this video as resources, and I will be back as soon as I can. So starting with the invitation for unit 2, this is a continuation of quadratics. First thing we want to talk about is perfect square. So a perfect square is basically something that is square rootable. I know that's not a word, but it's the best way I can explain it. So perfect squares are things like 25 or 36, 49. They're all perfect squares because you can square root them and get a nice number. All right, and so when it comes to perfect squares with a variable, perfect squares with a variable are things like this. This is a perfect square because you can square root it. If you square root it, it becomes x plus 5. Right? So anything like that is a perfect square. So A is a perfect square because this is basically x plus 5 squared. B is not. C is. D is not. E is because if you factor it, you get x plus 4 squared, and you can square root that, and F is not. All right. Pause the video now and complete invitation number 2. I highly encourage you to try it yourself. Don't just ignore me telling you to pause, but pause and try it yourself. Okay, hopefully you did try it. So factored form. This is going to be x plus 3 squared. You can see it's a perfect square. X minus 5 squared, it's a perfect square. Here we're going to get x squared minus 14x plus 49. Here we're completing it so that they are perfect squares. So basically, what are we adding to this to make it a perfect square? That's what we have to figure out. All right. And so hopefully maybe some of you figured out that the number that we have to add is going to be 100. Okay, and then when you factor it, it's going to be x minus 10 squared. And then after that, this is going to be 64. This is going to be 49 over 4. And this is going to be b over 2 squared. It's x plus 8, x plus 7 over 2, and x plus b over 2. Now, you're probably wondering how we got these numbers right here. If you already know how you got the numbers, then that's great. But if you're not quite sure how you got the number, just take a minute and think about it. How do you get from this b value? Because all of these x squareds, they're all 1. So we can just kind of ignore that. But how does the b value relate to the c value? Right, so here we have a 6 and a 9, negative 10 and 25. So think of some things that you notice about that and try to figure that out. And if you can't figure it out, that's okay. We're going to touch on more of that in the lesson. All right, which brings us to day 1. We're going to do something called completing the square. All right, so take a look at the learning targets, particularly the verbs like explain, solve quadratics by using completing the square and finding square roots. Do it when the coefficient of the square term is 1. And then also when a is not 1. And then solving quadratics in which the square term coefficient is not 1 by completing the square. So basically you want to know how to complete the square when the a value is 1 and also when it's not 1. And if you're not sure what completing the square is, that is exactly what Diego and... can't remember what we decided to name her, but I'm gonna go with Mai. Diego and Mai have two different ways to solve the same problem. So pause this video now and take a look at it and try to analyze what is happening. Okay, now that you've had a chance to analyze it, I think the problem or the area in which you are most confused, if you are confused, is probably this part right here, this adding 25. And of course here adding 16. Now, I personally, I like Diego's method, but May is completely correct as well. And so we're going to try solving using Diego's method here. And if you've done May's method, then that's great too. So Diego's method here, he moves the constant to the other side, right? He moves this -9 over. And then he does this strange thing where he adds 25. Now, the hard part is knowing what number to add. Why does he randomly add 25? And the answer can be found later in the problem. So we are going to add a 9. And if you're not sure why we're adding 9, just stay tuned. But when you add 9 to one side, make sure you add it to the other side. That's a very, very common mistake. And now when you factor, what we get is a perfect square. So what we did was we completed the square. And now, when you square root both sides, don't forget you add the plus or minus. And so x plus 3 is positive and -1. So x plus 3 is 1 and x equals -2. Or x plus 3 is -1 and x equals -4. Those are your two solutions. All right, and again, if you're wondering why we added 9, we added 9 to complete the square. And more importantly, if you're wondering why we added 9, hopefully maybe some of you have figured it out by now. But basically, we are taking this b value here, right? What we basically have, if we go to the box, this is x squared. So that means that this is going to be x and this is x. Now what we want to do is we want to complete the square. So we want to have two factors that are exactly the same. So we don't know what this number and this number are, but we do know that when we multiply it by the x, so I'll call this an a, this is going to be the same thing. They're both going to be a because they're the same variable, or it's the same factors. And so what we know is that this a plus this a has to be equal to 6x, right? Because that is the b value. And so if those two add up to 6x, but they're the same, then that must mean that both of them have to be 3x and 3x. Because we want the same factor, they have to be the same. So then this becomes +3, this becomes +3. And now when you do x times 3, you get your 3x. X times 3, you get your 3x. And now you can find the c value, which is the magical 9. And that's where that 9 came from. And so now when you FOIL x plus 3 times x plus 3, you're going to get x squared plus 6x plus 9. So now, because of that, we know from this step here, to get from this step to this step, right? We know that the two factors are x plus 3 and x plus 3. So we added 9 to make it a perfect square. All right, so again, you have to come up with this and this because that is half of the b value. All right, and so if we jump down to the takeaway, if we want to complete the square, take your b value divided by 2, just like we did here. So this is our b value over 2. That's how we get 3x and 3x. Because we have to have two numbers that add up to 6x. But then if you square them, you're going to get your c value, or you're going to complete the square. So that becomes your c. All right, now take a minute to pause the video and try questions 2, 3, and 4 if you weren't able to solve them. All right, now that you've taken a minute, let me try it here. So take the 12 divided by 2 and square it. So you're going to get x squared plus 12x plus 36. So we're adding 36 to the left side. You add 36 to the right side. When you factor, it becomes x plus 6 squared equals 49. X plus 6 is plus or minus 7. So x will be 1 and x is negative 13. Next one, I like to move the 21 over to the other side. Now take negative 10 divided by 2 and square it. So you're adding 25. And notice that we're always going to be adding something. It's because we're squaring it. Anytime you square something, you're adding. It's a positive. And then here we're going to get x minus 5 squared is equal to 4. X minus 5 is plus or minus the square root of 4, which is 2. So x is equal to 7 and x is equal to 3. And for fun, if we were to factor this, we would get x minus 7, x minus 3 equals 0, x equals 7, and 3. It's the same answers. Obviously, factoring is much easier, but we're just using other methods because sometimes we'll have to use this method. All right, next one, we're going to move the 3 to the other side. So you get x squared minus 2x equals 80. Divide by negative 2 by 2 and square it. So you're adding 1. So add 1. So we're going to get x minus 1 squared equals 81. X minus 1 is plus or minus 9. So x will be 10 and negative 8 are your final answers. All right, so that's activity 1. So that's completing the square with an a value of 1. Now, if you are still stuck on this, pause the video, rewind it, play it back, ask a neighbor, because this is critical. If you can't do this one, you're not going to be able to do activity 2. All right, activity 2 is very similar, except just a little bit harder. So we're going to be completing the square, same thing. But let's first change this to a factored form. So we get x squared minus 2x minus 3 equals 5. So x squared minus 2x will be equal to 8. And so we're going to be adding 1. We get that because that's negative 2 divided by 2 squared. And then x minus 1 squared is 9. So x minus 1 is plus or minus the square root of 9, which is 3. So x will be equal to 4 and negative 2. All right, moving on to number 2. Same thing. So 1 over 2 divided by 2, that's 1 over 4. And when you square it, it becomes 1 over 16. So 1 over 16 is what we are adding to both sides. All right, so then this is going to be x plus what two numbers add up to 1/2 and multiply to 1 over 16. I'm going to give you a hint. It's always b over 2. All right, and so you're going to get x plus 1 over 4 squared equals 4 over 16. And 4 over 16 simplifies to 1 over 4. Square root both sides. The square root of 1 over 4, it's the same thing as the square root of 1 over the square root of 4, which is a half. So x plus 1 over 4 is plus or minus 1/2. So x plus 1 over 4 is 1/2, and x plus 1 over 4 is negative 1/2. So x is equal to 1 over 4, and negative 1/2 minus 1/4 is negative 3 over 4. Right, so those are your answers. All right, here we have a b value that's odd, so right away we know that this is going to be trouble. Only if you don't know fractions, but fortunately we all do. So same idea, move the 8 over 4 to the other side, which is negative 8 over 4. I recognize that that is 2, but we're going to leave it as 8 over 4 for now. So take 3 divided by 2 and square it to complete the square, and you get 9 over 4. All right, and so when you factor this, it's going to be x plus 3 over 2 squared is equal to 1 over 4. And that's why we left it as 8 over 4. Now, when you square root both sides, it's going to be plus or minus the square root of 1 over 4, which we did earlier. It's 1 over 2, plus or minus. So x plus 3 halves is 1 half. X plus 3 halves is negative a half. So x will be negative 1, and x will be negative 2. And those are your final answers. All right, last one. FOIL, so 21 minus 7x minus 3x plus x squared plus 3 equals 0. Simplify that, x squared minus 10x plus 24 equals 0. Now, the instructions are to solve by completing the square. So we're going to move the 24 over to the other side. And now, hopefully you're getting pretty good at completing the square. You're going to add 25 here, add 25 here. X minus 5 squared is going to be 1. X minus 5 is plus or minus, the square root of 1 is 1. So x is equal to 6 and 4. Final answers. All right, so those are just a little bit trickier. The takeaway, though, is basically the same. In order to complete the square, we want to take the b value divided by 2 and square it. Just the two most common mistakes are not adding the constant, like the completing the square part, to both sides. So you see adding 1 to both sides, adding 1 over 16 to both sides, etc. As well as not doing the plus or minus when you square roots. It's important that you include that. All right, so that's activity number 2. Again, if you're struggling with this, pause the video, rewind it back, watch it again and again. Ask a friend or Gchat me, and I would be happy to help you. All right, let's move on to activity number 3. These are all perfect squares, and what we're going to do is we are going to expand them, right? So we want to write it in standard form. So this is 4x plus 1 squared, which is 4x plus 1 times 4x plus 1. And that's going to give you 16x squared plus 8x plus 1. All right, I'm going to pause the video and you guys do B, C, D, E, F, and then I'm just going to post the answers. All right, hopefully you had a chance to try them. These are the answers. And if you struggled with finding these answers, please do ask someone around you for help. But it is expected that you can do this pretty easily by now. All right, so those are your answers. Again, if you are struggling with any of them, do ask someone around you. But what I want you to do now is try to recognize what is happening here. You see that in standard form, all of them except for one, they have an x squared coefficient that is not 1. D is, but the rest of them are not. So keep that in mind, because now we're moving on to the second half of the lesson where the a value is not 1. In activity 2 and in activity 1, all of the a values were 1, so it's much easier. But here we can see that the a value is not 1. So try to think about how we get from standard form to factored form. See how they relate. Obviously, these first two multiply to that a value, and these second two multiply to that constant. But try to think about that b value, because that b value is what is the hardest, right? But basically that b value, if we were to expand it, if we have 4x and plus 1, 4x plus 1, this is 16x squared, this is 4x, this is 4x, and this is 1. So that b value comes from that multiplication right there. It's the sum of this and this. Right, so what we need to do here is we have to figure out if these are perfect squares. All right, and if not, how do we change it to be a perfect square? And so if we use the table method here, okay, we know that this is 4x squared and this is 9. So if they're perfect squares, this has to be the same as this. Okay, the first term of that binomial has to be the same. And then the second two have to be the same. Now we know that this green plus this red has to add up to 12x. Okay, that means that they must both be 6x. All right, so 2x times what will give you 6x? And so that's going to be 3. I'll do that in blue. This is going to be 3, and then this is also 3. So they're the same. And when you multiply 3 and 3 together, you get 9. So that's why the two factors, or the perfect square, is 2x plus 3. All right, and then for the second one, let's do the same idea. So this is 4x squared. This is 25. That means that this has to be 4x, this has to be 4x, right? Because it has to add up to 8x. This is 2x, this is 2x. This number here will be 2, this will be 2. So now do 2 and 2 multiply to add up to 25? They do not. All right, so that means that something is off here, because when you multiply 2x plus 2 squared, you're going to get 4x squared plus 8x plus 4. So what it's missing is it's missing a 21. So you could subtract 21. You could change this to a 4. That would make it a perfect square. That would make it 2x plus 2 squared. Yeah, so we could also, if we were to work backwards, we could change this to a 5 and this to be a 5. Now when you have 2x squared plus 5 times 2x plus 5, these two numbers will be 10x and 10x. So if you have 4x squared plus 20x plus 25, that could also be a perfect square. It'd be 2x plus 5 squared. So there's a few different things you can do. But basically, the takeaway from here is it's always helpful if you draw those diagrams, right? It's not always the fastest, but it will help. And to know if something's a perfect square, you can use this box method. But that's basically it for activity 3, which brings us to activity number 4. Now here we are finding a perfect square when the a value is not 1. So you see here the a values are not 1. So we need to know how to factor it. And so the method that I would use is, we know that in standard form, okay, I'm going to use tables until we can all understand. This is 100x squared. And because it's a perfect square, this is 40x and this is 40x. Okay, we know that because the b value is 80x. So then this is going to be 10x, which makes this 4 and this 4. So basically we are going to be adding 16. Okay, so if your C value is 16, the square factors are 10x plus 4 and 10x plus 4. Right, so if you can, try to think of a way to figure out that C without doing the diagram. See if you can figure that out. But if you can't figure that out, you can continue to use the diagram. That's completely fine. All right, so for the next one, if you use the diagram, again, this is going to be 36x squared, making this 6x and this 6x. This is negative 30x, making this minus 5, making this plus 25. So C is 25, and the factors are 6x minus 5 squared. All right, and then you can try the next one. All right, when you do it, hopefully you're going to get 5x plus 4 squared because the C value you're going to get is 16. And then the last one, it's going to be 0.5x minus 14 squared. All right, and if you're still struggling with this, ask a neighbor beside you. But you can always use that table method to figure out that C value to complete the square. All right. Now, I guess the pattern here, we notice that this first term is always the square root of the A. You see 6 is the square root of 36. The second constant here is the one that we need to find. That one's a little bit harder. In order to find that, we need to know, we need this too. But basically, to relate the two, you're taking the square root of 100, which is 10. So we have a 10 here. And then we know that this B value is 80. So if you divide 80 by 10, you're going to get a value of 8. And divide that by 2, and that is what is going to give you this M value, that factor. So try that with the next one too. Take negative 60 and divide it by the square root of 36. So negative 60 divided by root 36, which is 6, is negative 10. And take that and divide it by divide it by 2, and that's how you get negative 5. Take 40, divide it by the square root of 25. So 40 divided by 5 is 8. Divide that by 2, you get 4. So that's how you get this number. I don't want you guys to memorize that because you can always use the table, but that's kind of the shortcut. So for question number 2, I'll give you a minute to solve it. Okay, so for question number 2, you could do it 2 different ways. We know how to complete the square. Oh, and sorry, I forgot to mention this, but take note of this. This only works if the A value is 1. That's very important. Hopefully, highlight that. But this A value is not 1, so you can't use B over 2 squared. So you could divide everything by 25. So you get x squared plus 40 over 25x equals negative 12 over 25. And then take the B value, divide it by 2, square it. But it's going to get pretty messy. I mean, if you simplify the fraction first, it might help. But either way, there's a much faster method, and that is to complete this square. So if you have 25x squared plus 40x, you can take 40 divided by the square root of 25, and that's going to be 40 over 5, which is 8, and divide that by 2, and you get 4. So you're going to be adding 4, or 4 is going to be the factor. But if you weren't sure about that, use your table. So this is 25x squared, making this 5x and 5x. We know that it has to add up to 40x, so this is 20x, this is 20x. So this is going to be 4 and 4, making it a 16 is what you're adding. So 25x squared plus 40x plus 16. Don't forget to add it to both sides. When you factor that, it's going to be these factors right here. 5x plus 4 squared is 4. Square root both sides. Don't forget the plus or minus. So 5x plus 4 is 2. 5x plus 4 is negative 2. So x is negative 2 over 5, and x is negative 6 over 5. Those are your final answers. And try the last one. Pause the video, try the last one. All right, so here I'm going to take 36x squared minus 60x, move the 10 to the other side. And so if you have 6x, what am I doing? If you're doing the table method, you have 36x squared. So this is 6x, this is 6x. This has to be negative 30x. This is negative 30x, making this minus 5 plus 25 is what you're adding to both sides. So this is going to be 6x minus 5 squared equals 9. 6x minus 5 is plus or minus 3. So 6x minus 5 is 3. 6x minus 5 is negative 3. 6x is 8. X is 4 over 3. 6x is 2. X is 1 over 3. Right, so those are your final answers. Okay, once you're done with the video, you can start on the homework, and the sub will hand out the cooldowns when there's about 15 minutes left in class. So go through the homework, and then don't forget to go through activity 1 as well when you're factoring with an a value that's not 1. All right, and use each other as resource, and G-chat me if you need to.